Don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more bedtime stories. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is. And if there's a story you'd like to hear next, I'd love to know that too. I wasn't new to the grind. I'd flipped enough burgers in my life to know that night shifts could be hellish, but not because of ghosts. Usually, it was just drunk guys, weird loners, or kids trying to steal fries after closing. Still, when I transferred to the Burger King off Highway 74, something about that place felt off. Maybe it was the hum of the old neon sign outside, the one that flickered between Burr and King, like it couldn't decide whether to die or keep glowing. Or maybe it was just the way everyone got quiet whenever I said I'd take the late slot alone. Seriously, Ivy? My new coworker Sean raised his brows that first night. You're good with nights here? Alone? Yeah, I've done nights before, I said, slipping my phone into my pocket. McDonald's up in Monroe, I'll be fine. He and Lacey, the shift manager, exchanged a look. Not a friendly one either. Lacey lowered her voice. Just keep your phone charged, okay? I laughed it off. What, you think the grill's haunted? She didn't laugh. The clock hit 11:58 p.m. when the last customer left. Rain started to patter against the glass, the kind that sounded like static on an old radio. By midnight, it was just me, the soft buzz of the fryers, and the whirring soda machine that always sputtered too loud when it refilled. I liked the quiet. It gave me time to scroll through notes for my nursing classes and sip flat Dr. Pepper. About half an hour later, I heard the first sound, a soft click, like someone tapping metal with a coin. I looked up. Nothing. The restaurant was still, the dining area empty except for a few chairs stacked wrong by the window. Probably the ice machine. That thing sounded like a gunshot when it dropped cubes. I went back to scrolling. The lights above the counter flickered once. Then again, cheap wiring, I muttered. I'd already noticed half the outlets didn't work when I plugged in my phone earlier. Then, from the drive-thru headset, hey, a low, static-filled voice, male, deep. I froze. The drive-thru wasn't supposed to be open after midnight. I pressed the headset button. Sorry, we're closed. You'll have to come back tomorrow. Silence. Then, you're new. The voice was calm. Too calm. I felt the hair on my neck stand up. Excuse me? Static crackled. Then, nothing. I took off the headset and stared at it. The order system wasn't even active. The screen still showed the last ticket from hours ago. I tried to shake it off. Maybe some kid with a CB radio was messing around, but my hands felt cold. At 1:12 a.m., the rain got heavier. Water slid down the glass in sheets, and the parking lot lamps turned the puddles into shimmering mirrors. I heard the door chime. My head snapped up. The front door was locked. It had to be. Hello? I called out. My voice cracked. No answer. The chime dinged again, once, twice, like someone was stepping in and out just to mess with me. Lacey, if that's you trying to scare me, I swear to God. I stopped. Through the rain-streaked window, a figure stood in the parking lot, small, barefoot. At first I thought it was a child, maybe a girl. She had long hair plastered to her face and a pale pink hoodie that looked soaked through. She just stood there, staring at the glass. I moved closer, the rubber soles of my shoes squeaking on the tiles. Hey, are you okay? She didn't move, didn't blink, just pressed one hand against the window. And then I saw it. Her fingers were too long, like unnaturally long, joints in the wrong places. My stomach flipped. Jesus Christ. The lights flickered again, and in that split second of darkness, she was gone. Just gone. I stood there shaking, staring at my reflection in the glass. The rain kept coming harder. At 1:30 a.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Unknown. Where's my bear? I stared at the screen. Was this some kind of prank? Me. Who is this? No reply. I tossed the phone onto the counter and exhaled. Okay, Ivy, breathe. It's fine. People mess with the night crew all the time. But my hands were trembling. I went to the back, checking the stock freezer. The air was so cold it burned my nose. I wanted to distract myself, count patties, clean the fryer, anything. That's when I heard it again, a voice, soft, behind me. "Where's my bear?" I spun around so fast I slipped on the tiles. The mop bucket clattered over, spreading dirty water across the floor. No one was there, just the hum of the freezer. I grabbed my phone again, no signal, just emergency calls only. Of course, the storm. I tried the store phone next deadline. God damn this place. That's when the motion sensor above the counter clicked. I looked up at the security monitor. Camera 3, the lobby, showed a faint movement near the door, something crawling. I squinted. The screen glitched, static ripping across the image. When it cleared, I saw her again. The girl in the pink hoodie. Crawling on her hands and knees between the tables, I slammed the monitor off. My pulse pounded so hard I could feel it in my teeth. This can't be happening. The next 15 minutes were a blur. I locked every door, double-checked the back exit, grabbed my car keys and shoved them in my hoodie pocket, just in case. I sat behind the counter, whispering to myself like a crazy person. It's just a power glitch. Maybe someone broke in. I'll wait it out. Morning crew will be here by 5. I checked the time again. 2:04 a.m. The rain had turned into a storm now. And then the fryers turned on by themselves. The sizzle echoed through the kitchen. Oil bubbled even though the baskets were empty. I stepped closer, my hands shaking. The heat wasn't on. The plug wasn't even connected. Something behind me laughed. A child's giggle. I turned around, and the same faint voice whispered right behind my ear, "You took it." I screamed and stumbled backward, knocking over a tray of cups. The sound bounced through the empty space, sharp and hollow. That was when my phone lit up again, even though I hadn't touched it. The screen flickered and showed the security feed, like someone was streaming it. Only this time, I wasn't alone on it. There was a figure standing behind me, tall, thin, wearing the Burger King visor, but I was the only one working. "Hello?" I whispered. No answer. The figure on the feed tilted its head, slowly, like an animal studying prey. Then it moved, too fast, toward the camera. The screen went black, and in the silence that followed, I could still hear something. Footsteps. Sloshing through the wet floor toward me, I ran. Through the back, past the storage room, pushing open the emergency exit. Rain slapped my face. The parking lot was almost entirely dark now. The only light came from that dying burr sign buzzing like an insect. My car was at the far end. I sprinted. The rain drowned everything. My breath, my footsteps, even the faint voice still calling behind me. "Where's my bear?" When I reached the car, my hands shook so bad I dropped the keys. They hit the asphalt with a dull clink. I bent to grab them and froze. Under my car, in the reflection of a puddle, something moved. A small, pale hand reached out from beneath, dragging a wet teddy bear by its arm. My scream never made it out. The next morning, Lacey found the restaurant door still locked from the inside. The grill was cold. The floor spotless. The headset, however, was lying on the counter, still powered on. Through it, a soft static hummed, and somewhere in the noise, a child's voice whispered, "She took my bear." I never thought working at a fast food joint could mess with your head. Honestly, when I took the job at Burger King off Route 57, I just needed to make rent. After the pandemic hit, I'd been juggling temp jobs, delivery driver, cashier, warehouse loader, but nothing stuck. So when Tara, the store manager, said they needed a night shift assistant manager, I said yes before even asking about pay. It wasn't glamorous, but it was steady. My first week went by fine. Same old routine. Close at midnight, clean the fryers, prep the buns, restock. But the store itself felt weird. The fluorescent lights buzzed like bees. The soda machine hissed at random times. And there was this smell, not quite rotten, not quite burnt, that always lingered near the stockroom door, no matter how much we cleaned. When I asked about it, Luis, the other shift lead, laughed. "Smells like corporate meat," he said, shaking his head. "Every franchise gets it sometimes. Just don't ask what's in it." I thought he was joking. Friday night, Tara pulled me aside before clocking out. "Hey Kyle," she said, adjusting her hairnet. "Corporate's sending a guy tomorrow morning. Calls himself Mr. Crow. He's supposed to show you a new patty formula they're testing." "Corporate's sending someone out here?" I asked. "Since when do they care about us?" She shrugged. "Beats me. Said he'd be in around 7 a.m. Just open the back door for him. He's got a delivery." "What kind of delivery?" "No idea. Just play nice. Guy's high up." I worked the rest of the night alone. After closing, I sat by the counter, scrolling through my phone, listening to some late-night podcast about urban legends. That's when the drive-thru intercom crackled. Static. Then a low voice. "You're still there." I froze. The system wasn't even active. I'd shut down the POS 10 minutes ago. "Who is this?" I asked, leaning toward the mic. Static again. Then, "See you soon," and then silence. I told myself it was probably some trucker messing around on the frequency. Still, it rattled me. By morning, I was exhausted but curious. At exactly 6:55 a.m., I heard a van pull up behind the restaurant. When I opened the back door, a tall man in a dark suit stood there, holding a small cooler. He had thin gray hair slicked straight back and skin so pale it almost looked powdered. "Mr. Crow?" I asked. He smiled, the kind of smile that didn't reach the eyes. "That's right, you must be Kyle." He stepped in without waiting for an invitation. The smell hit me immediately. Raw meat, copper, something chemical. "I was told you'd show me a new product?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Yes," he said, setting the cooler on the prep table. "A new patty blend, higher protein, denser texture, real flavor." He opened the cooler. Inside were 6 vacuum-sealed patties, each darker than normal, almost purple. I frowned. "Those don't look cooked." "They're not yet. You'll cook one and taste it. Then you'll tell me what you think." Something about his tone didn't sit right, but I was tired, hungry, and curious. I fired up the grill, dropped a patty, and the moment it hit the metal, the smell filled the kitchen, rich, smoky, mouth-watering. When I plated it, it looked perfect, juicy, seared, the kind of thing you'd see in commercials but never in real life. I took a bite, and God, it was incredible. "Holy hell," I muttered. "This is different." "What's in this?" Crow smiled again. "Quality, that's all." "No, seriously, it tastes like, I don't know, real steak, but smoother." He didn't answer, just said, "You'll receive weekly shipments. Do not ask where they come from. Understand?" Yeah, sure." He turned to leave, then paused at the door. "Oh, and Kyle?" "Yeah? If anyone asks, you've never met me." That night, I couldn't stop thinking about that burger. It was addicting. I kept craving it. When I came in for the night shift again, I found another cooler waiting in the back, labeled for Kyle only. Inside, more of those patties. I cooked one, then another, ate them both. They were even better than before. But later that night, I started feeling weird. My hands were shaky, my stomach twisted, and when I looked in the mirror, I swear my eyes looked darker. Over the next few days, the staff started noticing too. "Dude, what's wrong with you?" Luis asked. "You look like you haven't slept in a week." "I'm fine," I said. "Just tired." He frowned. "You sure? You've been acting different, man, like jumpy." Tara chimed in. "And what's with those boxes showing up for you? You in on some side hustle?" I laughed it off, but deep down, I was nervous because the shipments kept coming and everyone smelled stronger. Then one night, the cooler was late. Around 3 a.m., I heard a noise in the back, the door creaking open. "Crow," I called out. No response. I walked toward the sound. The smell of raw meat filled the air again. And then, from the shadows near the stockroom, I saw someone hunched over the prep table. They were wearing a Burger King uniform, but the fabric was soaked, dark, almost dripping. "Hey, you can't be in here," I shouted. The figure turned, and for a second, I forgot how to breathe. It was me. My face, pale, blood-smeared, staring back at me. I stumbled back, grabbing the wall. The other me smiled. "Crow said you'd be perfect," it said, voice gurgling like it was half underwater. What the hell are you?" It tilted its head, replacement fresh stock. I ran. Out the back door, through the rain, across the empty lot. My heart pounded like a drum. When I looked back, Crow was standing under the yellow glow of the streetlight, holding that same cooler. He raised a hand and waved, calm, polite. Then he shouted, voice echoing through the lot. "You wanted to be the best, Kyle. Now you are." They found the restaurant unlocked the next morning. The grill was still on. The floor was spotless. Tara said the meat patties in the fridge looked strange. Too dark, too human. They called the cops. No one could explain it. And Mr. Crow never existed in Burger King's corporate records. A week later, the store reopened under new management. They still use the same grill, but employees say when they fire it up at night, the smell that fills the air isn't beef. It's something else, something that smells too much like home. I never believed in ghost stories. People talk about haunted motels, cursed highways, or creepy old mansions like something out of a movie, but I used to laugh it off. I'm Alex, 22, and this is the story of my first job, working the night shift at a burger palace in Ohio, summer of 2019. I swear on everything I have, this story's real. At least, it felt real that night. I'd just moved out of my parents' place a few months before, crashing in a small apartment 2 blocks from the Burger Palace on Ridge Avenue. I was broke, desperate, and willing to take whatever job I could find. The manager, Mr. Peterson, hired me after a 5-minute chat. "Night shift's rough," he said, flipping through the papers, "but it's quiet. You'll mostly be cleaning, mopping floors, restocking. Easy stuff. You good with that?" "Yeah, sure," I replied, trying not to sound too eager. He smiled, but it wasn't friendly. It was that kind of forced smile, like he'd rather not talk about it anymore. My first few weeks were normal enough. The crew was small. Me, Riley, who handled the register, and Tommy, the fry guy who'd been there forever and never shut up about quitting. Nights were slow. After 10 p.m., we barely saw a customer I didn't mind. I liked the calm, the smell of fries and grease, and the buzz of the soda machine humming behind the counter. Everything changed one Thursday night. We were closing up. The sign outside still flickered. The P in Palace had burned out months ago, so it just said Burger Alice. I was sweeping near the kids' area, a small glass-walled corner with a ball pit and a tiny play tunnel that led to a plastic slide. It was old, grimy, and honestly creepy, even in the daytime. As I was mopping near the play zone, I heard a thump. I froze. It sounded like something, or someone, had dropped into the ball pit. At first, I thought maybe Tommy had tossed something in just to mess with me. "Yo, Tommy, that you?" No response. The fryer was off. The kitchen was dead silent. I walked closer. The dim light from the ceiling made the plastic balls glimmer like weird candy, red, blue, yellow. Then, I saw movement. A small silhouette like a child shifting inside. My heart started racing. Hey kid," I called out, forcing a laugh. "We're closed, buddy. You can't be in there." The shadow didn't move. It was just sitting there, facing the corner of the pit, unmoving. "Yo, Riley," I shouted. "You see this?" Riley came over, chewing gum. "What the hell are you talking about?" There's a kid in there, man. Look." She squinted through the foggy glass. "I don't see nothing." "Look right there." When I turned back, the shape was gone. I felt my stomach drop. Riley smirked. "You've been watching too many horror flicks, bro." "Swear to God, I saw something." "Yeah, well, maybe it was your reflection." She patted my shoulder and went to grab her bag. I didn't argue, but I didn't forget either. 2 nights later, same shift. This time, it was just me and Tommy. The others called off, so we had to finish cleaning ourselves. Around 2 a.m., Tommy went out back for a smoke while I mopped the lobby. When I got near the ball pit again, I felt it. The same feeling, like someone watching me. The glass reflected my own face, pale under the fluorescent lights. Then, movement again. A hand, small, pale. Pressed up against the inside of the plastic tube, I froze mid-step. The hand slid slowly down the glass, leaving a faint smudge. "Hey!" I shouted, stepping back. "Who's in there?" Nothing. I pulled out my phone and turned the flashlight on. The beam cut through the cloudy plastic, lighting up hundreds of greasy plastic balls. But no kid. My hand was shaking as I hit record. "If someone's hiding in there," I said quietly. "This isn't funny." Suddenly something scratched the inside of the tunnel long, dragging nails on plastic. I jumped back, nearly dropping my phone. Then I heard it. A sob. Soft. Childlike. Coming from inside the slide. "Tommy," I yelled, backing away. "Tommy, get in here." He ran in, annoyed. "What's your problem, man?" "You hear that?" We both stood still. The sound was gone. "Dude, you're freaking yourself out. There's nothing here." I wanted to believe him. I really did. But when I turned the phone screen toward him, his face went pale. On the video, just for a split second, you could see a shape dart through the tunnel. Small, hunched, crawling too fast to be human. Tommy looked at me, wide-eyed. "Delete that," he whispered. "Right now." "What?" "Just do it, Alex. Trust me." The next day, Tommy didn't show up. Peterson said he quit, no notice, no reason. By then, I was done pretending it was my imagination. I needed answers. So after closing, I asked Mr. Peterson directly, "Sir, something's wrong with that ball pit." He sighed, didn't even look surprised. "Sir, something's wrong with that ball pit." He sighed, didn't even look surprised. "Yeah, I figured you'd notice eventually." "What the hell's that supposed to mean?" He wiped his glasses, staring at the floor. "Few years back, before you started, a little boy went missing. His mom was inside ordering, and he crawled into the play tunnel. They searched for days, cameras didn't show him leaving. Eventually, cops ruled it an accident, said he might have wandered off. But, you think he didn't?" Peterson looked at me dead serious. "I think he never left. I don't even know why I came in that night. Maybe curiosity, maybe stupidity. I told myself I was going to catch proof, something that would make people believe me." It was just after 1 a.m. I set up my phone on a napkin holder, facing the play zone. The restaurant was silent, except for the hum of the AC and the buzz of the exit sign. Then, the sobbing started again. This time, closer. I picked up the mop handle like a weapon and walked toward the ball pit. The lights flickered and the air grew colder. I could see my breath. A shadow moved inside the tunnel, crawling, twitching. "Show yourself," I shouted. The plastic balls began to shift, moving like something was burrowing underneath them. Then I saw him, a little boy, pale skin, black rings under his eyes. He looked like he hadn't slept or breathed in years. He smiled. I froze. My knees went weak. The kid's smile widened, splitting at the corners. His teeth weren't right, too sharp. Before I could react, something grabbed my ankle from inside the pit. I fell, screaming, kicking, trying to pull free. "Let me go, let me go." I clawed at the floor, but whatever he was strong. Then I heard a voice, soft and raspy. "Stay and play with me." I screamed until my throat burned. Suddenly, hands, real hands, grabbed my arms and yanked me backward. Riley and Peterson were there, shouting my name. The moment I was out, the lights came back on. The ball pit was still, empty. They both stared at me like I'd lost my mind. I tried to show them my phone, my proof, but the video was gone, just static. I pulled up my pant leg, trembling. Around my ankle were tiny red fingerprints I quit the next morning. Peterson didn't even ask why. He just nodded and said, "Probably for the best." A week later, the play area was gone. They covered it up, replaced it with new booths. But I drive past that place sometimes, and when I do, I swear I still see it, the faint outline of the old ball pit through the glass. And sometimes, if you stop and listen, right around 2 a.m., you can still hear the sound of plastic balls shifting, like something's waiting to play again. I never thought a job at a fast food restaurant would mess with my head this badly. Before I started working at a Burger King just outside of town, I thought I had it all figured out. My apartment was barely a 5-minute walk from the drive-thru, and I always preferred the quiet of the night shift. Fewer customers, less stress, and I could zone out with YouTube while I worked. The pay wasn't great, but at least it was enough to cover the basics. It was late, around midnight on a cold Monday, when the first strange encounter happened. I was sitting behind the counter, scrolling through my phone, when I heard the familiar sound of a car pulling into the drive-thru. I quickly set the phone aside, slapped on a polite smile, and grabbed the headset. "Welcome to Burger King. How can I help you tonight?" A man in his early 30s was sitting in the driver's seat, wearing a bright floral Hawaiian shirt that screamed summer, despite the cold. His eyes, though, those were what stood out. They were wide, a little too intense, like he was staring through me rather than at me. His passenger side, though, caught me off guard. Sitting beside him was a skeleton dressed in a tattered red dress and a blonde wig. It looked like some twisted Halloween decoration, but it was real enough to send a chill down my spine. He didn't seem to notice that I was unnerved. "Yeah, we're hungry," the man said, not even glancing at me. His attention fixed on the skeleton. I tried to keep things professional, though every instinct in me was screaming that something wasn't right. What would you like to order, sir?" The man grinned, but it wasn't a comforting grin. His voice was soft, like he was talking to someone else. "A Whopper for me, and she'll have a cheeseburger." The next few minutes were a blur of uncomfortable silence. The man talked to the skeleton as if it was real, whispering sweet things to it, laughing. It was surreal. I handed him his food, tried to keep the conversation polite, and he paid in cash. The whole exchange was bizarre, but I told myself it was probably some weird prank. He drove off slowly, still talking to the skeleton as he left. For the next couple of weeks, the man returned, always wearing that same shirt, always with the skeleton. And every time, I'd take his order and hand him his food. The routine became strangely normal. He never tried anything worse than talking to the skeleton, which became more unsettling the longer I worked there. I tried to avoid thinking about it. But then came that night. The night everything changed. I was working a shift when the rain started coming down hard, pounding against the windows like a drum. The only sound besides the rain was the hum of the drive-thru intercom. I was getting ready to clock out when I heard his car approaching again. I sighed, bracing myself for the same odd encounter. But this time, something was different. He wasn't alone. Sitting next to him in the passenger seat was a woman, barely conscious, her head hanging low, her body limp. I could smell the strong stench of alcohol, even from a distance. My stomach twisted, and panic set in. The man didn't seem to notice, or maybe he didn't care. "Your order, sir," I asked, my voice shaky. The man didn't seem to acknowledge the question at first. He was too busy whispering something into the woman's ear, his fingers brushing her hair. She was barely breathing. He finally turned to me, still grinning. "A Whopper for me. She'll have a cheeseburger like always." I noticed that he was clutching the woman's hand now, as though she were just another part of his routine. I didn't know what to do. I tried to stay calm, but something in my gut told me this wasn't right. I cleared my throat, trying to maintain control. "Sir, we're running low on cheese. Would you like to substitute something else for her?" His eyes narrowed, and he turned to the woman, his voice cold. "No, Jody loves cheese. She needs it." He said it like he was speaking to a real person, and I had to fight the urge to call for help. But then, out of nowhere, the man's voice grew louder, more insistent. "Don't you dare mess with her," he screamed, his voice shaking with rage. The situation was escalating fast, and I could feel my hands shaking as I reached for the mic. "I'm sorry, but we can't make the cheeseburger tonight. Would you like something else?" "Jody doesn't want that," he yelled, his face contorting in anger. "She wants what she wants." I could feel the tension in my bones, the hairs on the back of my neck standing up. And then, without warning, I snapped, "Take Jody to where she belongs. A graveyard is the only place for that freak show." The moment the words left my mouth, his face went white, and I knew I had crossed a line. His lips curled into a twisted grin, his teeth showing like a predator. "Oh, I see now," he said in a slow, creepy voice. "You're jealous, aren't you? Jody's got a thing for you, doesn't she? She's crushing on you, baby." The insanity in his voice made my skin crawl. I didn't say another word. I couldn't. I was too stunned to respond. He threw me a look before driving off, leaving me standing there, frozen in place. Days passed and the man didn't show up. I thought maybe he had given up on his bizarre visits, but just when I thought it was over, he came back. This time, he was alone. No skeleton, no woman, just him. I handed him his food without a word, trying to focus on the task and not on the strange, unsettling atmosphere that hung in the air. He took his meal, but instead of leaving, he parked across the street. He sat on the hood of his car, eating his burger while staring directly at me. His eyes never left mine as he licked the ketchup from his fingers like it was blood. I felt the blood drain from my face. I had never been so repulsed in my life. When he was finished, he wiped his mouth slowly, got into his car, and drove away. That was the night I told my boss. We had to report him to the cops, but it seemed like he had vanished. No one had seen him for weeks and the cops couldn't find him. But then, on a cold night, just before my shift was over, I saw him again. This time, his eyes were colder, harder. He had a wrench in his hand, a look of pure madness on his face. And with that, he did the unthinkable. I had to watch as he murdered a girl, right there in front of me. Her life snuffed out by his twisted mind. Her blood splattered across the drive-thru window. I couldn't do anything. I froze in terror. By the time the police arrived, it was too late. I was in shock. My boss told me the man had been arrested, but I knew I would never get that image out of my mind. The girl, they said, had been drinking at a local bar. He had lured her in, taken advantage of her, and brought her to his twisted reality. I don't know what happened to the girl. I don't know if I could have saved her, if I had acted sooner. I'll never forgive myself for being too slow to realize what was going on. I haven't been able to sleep right since. I still hear that man's voice in my head, his laugh. I don't think I'll ever forget what I saw that night. It was late spring when I first started working at Burger Town. The restaurant wasn't anything special, just your typical fast food joint nestled in a quiet strip mall at the edge of a suburban neighborhood. Not a lot of traffic, mostly regulars, and the occasional wanderer. The kind of place you'd drive by without thinking twice. But it was the place I needed. I'd been struggling ever since I got out of college. My old man left when I was a kid, and my mom, well, she wasn't around long enough for me to remember much. So it was just me and my Aunt Linda who did her best. But she had her own life to live. That's why I ended up crashing at my uncle's, a small apartment above his auto shop, barely enough room for a bed and a dresser. But it worked. Just needed to save up, get my own place. Burger Town was an easy gig. 10-hour shifts, fast-paced, repetitive work. Take orders, make burgers, clean the fryer. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid. What bothered me more than the long hours, though, was the fact that I had to work the graveyard shift. But hey, less people meant less stress, right? At least, that's what I kept telling myself. It was a Tuesday night, nothing out of the ordinary. The usual crowd had come in and left, mostly older folks, a few regulars who ordered the same meal every time I was cleaning the front counter when the bell above the door rang. I glanced up and saw him, the guy who always showed up around 10 p.m., dressed like he just walked out of a Burger Town, had a giant paper crown on his head, the cheesy plastic mask covering his face, and the big Burger Town shirt. You couldn't miss him. "Welcome to Burger Town. What can I get for you?" I said with my usual enthusiasm, though I was honestly getting tired of his antics. "Give me 30 cheeseburgers," he said, his voice muffled through the mask, "and a large fry." My eyebrow raised, but I kept my cool. 30? Are you sure, man? 30 cheeseburgers? I asked. 30. And don't forget the fries, I'm starving, he said, deadpan, like it was the most normal thing in the world. I nodded, trying to keep the situation from getting too weird. "All right, just so you know, that's gonna take a minute." He slapped a wad of cash on the counter, about $200, and walked toward the far corner of the restaurant. The booth was empty, but he always picked that one. I went to the back, relaying the order to the kitchen. 30 cheeseburgers. As they fired up the grills, I couldn't help but wonder why anyone would order that much food. It wasn't even a challenge, just weird. About 10 minutes later, I walked over with a tray stacked high with burgers and fries. He had his phone set up on the table, pointed at the tray, some sort of live stream, I assumed. Maybe he was filming a ridiculous mukbang. I placed the tray down in front of him, trying not to laugh. I figured it was just another one of his weird stunts. "Here you go, 30 cheeseburgers, fries," I said, trying to mask my amusement. "Thanks, man," he muttered. Not even looking up from his phone, I headed back to the counter, trying to mind my business, but I could see him shoveling the burgers into his mouth one by one. I lost track after 10, but by the time I was about to close up, the man was slouched in the booth, passed out, the remnants of the burgers scattered across the table like a crime scene. It was 1 a.m. when I finally started cleaning up. The lights flickered a little, and the air felt thick, like something wasn't quite right. I looked over at the guy in the booth. He wasn't moving. I sighed, grabbing my broom and heading towards the back, ready to close up and get the hell out of there. But then, as I was about to lock the door, I heard it. A soft knock. It came from the direction of the booth, so I looked over, thinking maybe I'd mistaken something. Knock, knock, knock. I froze. My heart started racing. "Hello?" I called out, my voice trembling slightly. No answer, just the knocking. I walked toward the booth, cautiously. That's when I noticed him, standing at the corner of the booth, staring at me, his mask now off. His eyes were wide, unnervingly so, and his face was pale, lips cracking into a twisted smile. "Time to close up, buddy," I said, trying to sound confident. But then his smile dropped. "You think I'm just some joke, don't you?" he muttered, his voice dripping with something darker. "I'm not leaving, not until you see what I've got for you." Before I could react, he bolted toward the exit. I ran after him, but by the time I got outside, he was gone. I locked the door, my hands shaking as I fumbled with the keys. The street was quiet, too quiet. No one else was around. I told myself it was just some weird late-night prank. The next few hours were a blur. I finally made it home at 3 a.m., heart still racing from the encounter. I took a quick shower, hoping it would calm me down, but when I stepped out of the bathroom, I froze. There he was, the Burger Town mascot, right in my living room, standing by the door. "How the hell did you get in here?" I yelled, heart pounding. He tilted his head, still grinning, that same insane smile plastered across his face. "Open the door," he said in a sing-song voice. "Let me in, let me in." My stomach dropped. I reached for the phone, but the line was dead. No signal. He slammed his fist against the door over and over, the sound ringing in my ears. "Open the door." I backed up, looking around in a panic. Then I remembered the gun my uncle had hidden in the back of the closet. I grabbed it, my hands slick with sweat as I aimed it toward the door. "Please, don't make me do this," I said, the fear in my voice thick. "Just go away." But he wouldn't stop. He was laughing now, his voice high and shrill. "Come on, let's see if you've got what it takes." I kicked the door, but it didn't budge, so I did the only thing I could. I fired. The shot echoed through the house. The door splintered, and I heard the man scream. I rushed forward, pulling it open. There he was, his body sprawled on the floor, blood pooling beneath him. But what really shook me wasn't the sight of him. It was the fact that when I looked up, my uncle was standing there. "What did you do?" he asked, his voice low, calm. I didn't know how to answer him. The man was dead, but his words still echoed in my head. "Look, kid," my uncle said, his voice tight. "This isn't the first time he's shown up. You're not the first to deal with him." He lowered his gaze, like he knew something I didn't. "Who the hell was he?" I demanded, my voice trembling. "Someone who got too close," my uncle muttered. "Someone who wanted more than just a seat at the table." I stood there frozen, the weight of what happened settling on me like a heavy fog. But my uncle didn't say anything more. He just looked at me, and I could see the weariness in his eyes. That night, I didn't sleep. I couldn't. The image of that man, of the mascot, haunted me, even in the silence of my own home. The line between reality and nightmare had blurred, and I didn't know what was worse. The man who came into my house or the truth I'd learned that night. That truth. There were things in the world that shouldn't be messed with, and sometimes the customers at Burger Town are more than just hungry. It was late spring, around the first week of May, when I landed a full-time gig at a local burger joint called Wally's Burger Haven, just a few blocks down from my apartment. The 15-minute walk was a blessing, nothing like the long, soul-crushing bus rides I used to endure for past jobs. Still, working at a fast food joint wasn't exactly the dream job I had in mind when I moved to the city, but at least it paid the bills. I was fresh out of high school, still figuring out what I wanted to do with my life, and Wally's wasn't too picky about hiring. My boss, Doug, a gruff middle-aged guy who wore his white apron like it was armor, didn't seem to care much about my lack of experience. He just needed warm bodies to man the kitchen and help with orders. The job wasn't hard, making food, working the drive-thru, cleaning up after messy customers. What made it tolerable was working with my coworker, Jesse. Jesse was around my age, and we clicked pretty quickly. He had a dry sense of humor and always cracked jokes to lighten the mood, especially during the brutal night shifts. Honestly, without him, I would have quit by now. But then there was Chuck, the older guy. Chuck had been working at Wally's for what seemed like forever. Doug always paired him up with me and Jesse during weekends. And every time Chuck was around, things felt off. He wasn't a terrible worker, but there was something about him that made me uneasy. His eyes lingered too long when he looked at me, and he'd wink, always at the most inappropriate moments. At first, I thought I was imagining things, but it didn't take long to realize that I wasn't. Chuck had a thing for young guys like me, and it made me feel dirty. He never made any outright advances, but the way he'd grin at me and make weird comments made my skin crawl. One day, I needed to use the restroom, so I headed over to the back, where the employee-only washroom was. As I was walking toward the door, I saw Chuck standing in front of the urinal. The place was tiny, with just one stall and one urinal. It was always uncomfortable, especially when there were customers waiting to use it. But today, it felt even worse. Chuck glanced over at me, and I tried to pretend like I didn't see him. I shuffled awkwardly near the sink, pretending to adjust my shirt while my eyes stayed glued to the mirror, but I could feel him staring, his eyes burning into the back of my head. The silence between us was suffocating. It was as if the entire world around us had faded, and all I could hear was the sound of my own heartbeat. I dared to glance over at him. He was still peeing, but now he had his tongue out, licking the bottom of his lips. The hell. I looked away, trying to ignore the sick feeling rising in my throat. Time dragged on. It felt like an eternity. I couldn't take it anymore. "Yo, you done yet?" I called out, trying to keep my voice steady. Chuck didn't even look up. "Does it look like I'm done, kid?" His voice was slow, deliberate. He was getting off on this. I could feel it. "Seriously, man, I need to go," I said, my patience running thin. Chuck grinned, taking his sweet time. "Why rush? I'm just getting started, if you know what I mean." A chill ran down my spine. I could feel his gaze on me. Even though I wasn't looking at him, I made a decision. I'd wait for him to finish, but I wasn't staying in that tiny washroom with him any longer than I had to. I stepped into the stall, trying to block him out, but I could still hear him chuckling to himself. I didn't dare look at the toilet. I just wanted to get this over with. Once I finished, I washed my hands and tried to shake off the unease that was crawling under my skin, but Chuck wasn't done with me yet. He stood at the sink, glancing at me with that creepy smile. "The urinal's all yours, kid," he said, his voice dripping with condescension. I turned away, not bothering to respond. As I left, I saw Doug passing by, and he gave me a quick nod. "Don't mind Chuck. He's been here a long time." "A little weird sometimes," Doug said, "but he's harmless. Don't worry about him." I nodded, but I wasn't convinced. Not by a long shot. A few nights later, I was scheduled for another night shift. Jesse and I were working the kitchen, and things were pretty quiet. The drive-thru was slower than usual, and the dining area was empty. It was just us, alone in the back. I was zoning out, scrolling through my phone when I heard the door open. I looked up, and there he was, the same goddamn Burger King mascot. The giant foam head, the cheesy grin, but something was off. The costume was more menacing tonight. The way the eyes of the mask seemed to gleam in the dim light, I thought I was hallucinating. "What the hell are you doing here?" I muttered, half joking. But the mascot didn't respond. Instead, it just stood there. I froze. And then I saw it. A gleam of metal. The mascot was holding a large kitchen knife. "Hey!" I yelled, my voice breaking. "What the hell is this? What are you doing, man?" The figure didn't answer. It just started walking toward me, the knife held high. I scrambled for something, anything to defend myself, and my eyes locked on the kitchen knife by the deep fryer. My hand shot out. Grabbing it, I was shaking, but I wasn't going down without a fight. I raised the knife, my heart pounding in my chest. The mascot took another step forward. "Stay the hell away from me," I screamed. But just as I was about to make a move, the mascot slipped. The lettuce that had been carelessly tossed on the floor earlier caused him to lose his footing. The knife slid from his hand, just out of reach. I jumped on him, pinning him down. In the chaos, I yanked off the mask and, "Jesse?" My voice faltered as I looked down at my friend, sprawled out beneath me, gasping for air. "Dude, it's just a prank," he said weakly, his voice strained from the mask he had been wearing. "You should have seen your face." I stood there, breathless, shaken. I didn't know whether to be relieved or furious. That was messed up, man, I said, my voice hoarse. What the hell were you thinking? Jesse gave a weak smile. I thought it'd be funny. The look on your face when you saw the knife? Priceless. I didn't know whether to laugh or punch him in the face, but I couldn't even muster up the energy. The whole night felt like a blur, like something out of a nightmare. As I stood there, trying to process what had just happened, I realized one thing for sure. Working at Wally's wasn't just about flipping burgers. It was about surviving the weirdness that came with it. And sometimes, surviving was the only thing that mattered.